Hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are getting ready to jump into our next series, but I am joined by Zombie Grub now and not Fear Dragon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Pretty excited to cast the semifinal and who's going to be in the grand finals just right after this. I'm ready to go whenever.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing Temple just won the first series, and now it's going to be Illinois versus Waterloo. I think Waterloo pretty heavily favored, like Fear Dragon and I were talking about. They've just got a super deep lineup. Players like Yenfu and the Riddler are really dangerous guys that make decent runs in those WCS qualifiers. Illinois going to be really relying on Kremlin to try to carry things through, help them get through the series. I mean, he's their ace, he's their GM, and he's going to be going to bat first against the Riddler. So that's going to be a tough start for him. And
Style sometimes.
So you're cutting in and out a bit. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I guess I'll keep rolling with this. I was saying that he has a very, he's actually very good, even if his playstyle is kind of annoying. That just adds to how good it can be. So I'd certainly be afraid to go up again.
Yeah, I mean, he puts a stranglehold, especially against Zergs. And I'm not sure how experienced and how comfortable Krillman is, with dealing with that slow creep of tanks. And he likes to mix in the ghosts and the nukes. And it's just a lot of zone control. And I think the two ways we've really seen players try to deal with the Riddler is either you have something brutal that's just going to kill him right at the start, or you say, you know what, I'm going to play your game. I'm going to out-Viper your tanks. I'm going to get Broodlords raining down fire on top of everything. And I'm not going to let you get up to that critical mass of Viking Raven that's just basically unengageable for the Zerg player once it's on the map.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, I think Protoss is the best against this Turtle Terran style, and then it's Zerg, and then Terran's like a TVT when someone is just I'm going to dig in my heels and really turtle up. That's probably the most frustrating. You miss the opportunities to deny their bases, and suddenly you just realize, oh, okay, I have to play their game, because it's a mirror matchup. But Zerg, I think being kind of in the middle there, they do have all of these options that aren't available to the Terrans. They can maybe break around that third or fourth base, which is the most integral part of a matchup like this, 99% of the time. If you get to 4 bases, then the mech player will usually do very, very well in that game. But I think we're just waiting on the Riddler right now.
Yeah, it looks like he's maybe getting that lobby bug that is so obnoxious to deal with, trying to get into that lobby here. And I'm really curious to see. I mean, it's going to be Acid Planet, right? It's an easier map to split. I wonder if Krillman is going to be comfortable trying to play the Riddler's game, and I think Krillman's been aggressive in the past. Maybe he just wants to bust something out and try to stop him from getting there. Because if you do it early enough and you commit hard enough, you're not attacking into 1,000 tanks. You're attacking into whatever he's managed to make off his first couple of production facilities.
It's a good plan. I think that, and it's also, we talked a little about how the races match up against each other with the style, also the leagues that you play in. I mean, Krillman's actually pretty good GM here. I think everyone on Illinois is GM. But anyways, you can actually hit those timings, that does say, I don't even want to play that game. Let's do a 3-base all-in or something along those lines. That will perhaps be more effective than a diamond player for trying to do the same thing against the same style of player. So I'm sure that a lot of homework is done into this. They know what the power players are for Waterloo, and it's not really that difficult to find some of the games that have recently been played by these guys. They were just in the TESPA tournament, weren't they?
Yeah, I think they were in the TESPA tournament. It's gonna be a fun series to watch for sure. But this one is super critical for Illinois, just because Waterloo's whole lineup is GM. And Illinois doesn't have that same level of depth. So I think Waterloo, Waterloo's super favored here, and Illinois is gonna really have to make something happen, especially in this first game.
I guess I reversed which one is all GM, but yeah, okay. So yeah, well, okay, bringing out the points, that's gonna be really tough then. But this first match should be a good one. Maybe some other ones might be a little more imbalanced, but I feel like this one should be a good showcasing. Krillin hopefully keeps up the pressure, and we'll see if our Terran can bust out some serious mech.
Well, we are spawning into our first map here. So in the bottom right-hand corner, we have our green Zerg player. It is Krillman. He's going to be representing Illinois here.
In the top left, he is not the one only Avillo. He's actually the Riddler.
Yeah, so coming up for Waterloo. This is Acid Planet. The bases are a bit spread out, you know. Krillman, I think, is a bit aggressive, so he could be going for some kind of run-by type play. He could be wanting to do some multitasking and denying the Riddler from getting up to those 3 bases that, like you were talking about, he's going to feel super comfortable on as a mech player.
Yeah, Acid Planet is not a great map for mech. You know, I think you get Neon Violet Square, or oh my gosh, what's the other really good one?
Black Pig?
Actually, you know what? Neon Violet Square is probably the best one, but I was trying to think of maybe like Catalyst. I think is really obnoxious because the push point. Once the big player is good to go, is like really annoying too. But no, I guess I was mostly thinking Neon Violet Square. Oh, Backwater. That's what I was trying to get to. The maps with the safe first, and I was doubting myself for a second there. But no, you get those 2 maps against like a mech player, regardless of their style of mech, but just mech, and you're like, that's those are good maps for that. Acid Planet, I feel like, isn't a terrible map for it, but it is not very easy to jump from your 3rd over to your 4th, which is the real contentious point of a matchup like this. By the time you're trying to get to your 4th, unless it's absurdly fast, or absurdly slow, I guess, the Zerg player is ready to go. They might have already even gotten to Vipers and are like trying to posture around the map. So there's definitely more opportunities. I think that Krillman might be even a little bit happy that there's this map. Maybe there's some other ones that are worse, but it should be all right. Doesn't start things off too well, though. Losing an Overlord to a Marine never feels very good.
Yeah, that's an annoying start here for Krillman. He's going to try to run the Overlord. I don't think that's actually a vision block. Okay, yeah, so there's like that 1 pixel in the center.
Yeah.
That's a vision blocker.
Yes, it is. I feel like for a time they got rid of these in the maps. They all, like, every map maker decided they didn't want to use it, and then they brought it back for this map pool. But, you know, we talked a big deal about a big game about mech and how it's going to work out in this map, but we actually have the Riddler going for a 2-1-1. So going in that bio play, going in for some serious aggression. I personally like doing bio more on Acid Plant versus Zerg as well, as opposed to mech. That 3rd, 4th situation is difficult, but also there's some really good tank pushes where, you know, tanks are obviously included in mech too, but the pacing of it's very different. You start off with 2 base, maybe a 2 base tank push, but like 2 tank push, and then you drop somewhere else with your 4th or 5th medevac, whatever. Like, it can be really hard for the Zerg player to hold on. There's a really abusive spot with rocks around their 4th. But, can you tell with that? I mean, the Seeing No Factory is already a tell as a 2-1-1, to be honest. That's the way it was back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, he saw the reactor on the Marines, the Marine count being pretty high. He might have a whiff that something's going on here.
Yeah. I think, hopefully there's not enough of a fear of what could potentially be this very, very long mech game, so much that he does kind of ignore what he scouts. I think the Riddler's going to have a pretty decent bio game as well. Like, you should be open to both builds or style of play with this guy. And hopefully he is thinking of that and thinking, okay, that was suspicious. There's only really one thing you can do when you go for reactored Marines instead of reactored Hellions, and that is the 2-1-1. And a 3rd CC build, not like double port Banshee. Those both include Hellions. So he should be getting Lings. Like, we'll know if he knows what it is, basically, if he gets Lings around like 4:30. Because that's the timing is about 5 minutes when they're going to drop. Hopefully he's prepared.
Yeah, and it looks like the Riddler getting out a pretty large Marine army. He's going to have those 2 medevacs to go in for the drop here, and Krillman is just sitting on these 3 bases. He is starting to get his first couple rounds of Lings. He does have a decently high queen count, and he's still pumping out more. I'm not sure if he knows exactly what's coming, but as long as everything's in position, he is going to have the tools to deal with this.
Yeah, I think this is looking like it's a perfect reaction to one. So I guess, for the people that are serious about watching StarCraft, you see Maru doing this, bringing it back, kind of, even involving some of the two bases pushes that were done when this was very popular, like 2 years ago at this point. But really, like, one of the reasons that Maru does is because he's Maru, and it's really hard to beat Maru. So, this is so bad. Not just because the Lings get in and they're gonna kill SCVs, but because it will distract from the 2 medevac drop in the main base. If he missed micros with this and loses his SCV mining time, it could be just game over, basically.
Yeah, and Krillman does have a pretty high link count back at home. Huge clean count. And suddenly doing pretty well with this attack here. He's shutting down all the mining in the natural base, taking care of the front wall, putting a lot of hurt in. These Hellions could eventually clean this up, but this was just such a nice reaction from Krillman to know that attack was coming and say, I'm going to hit you at the same time you try to hit me.
You know, that against most other 2-1-1s would probably have done a lot more damage. Probably get to cancel the 3rd CC, kill more SCVs, but the Riddler did something interesting where he swapped the factory on the reactor, so he did actually have Hellions reduced. Otherwise, it's just 3 Marines at a time, which the Lings would surround too often. So a bit fortunate there, but ultimately unfortunate overall. Losing 1 medevac, not really having the pressure at this point. Krillman can just literally just explode. Like he'll take a 4th base, so his creeps are going to go everywhere, and there's not much that the Riddler can do. It looks like he's going to maybe transition into mech. That's exactly what he's going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it is the Riddler, after all. Sometimes, especially when you're in a final situation, why not stick to what you know, right? And he's going to come out with this little Hellion push, maybe try to find some damage. Actually going to get a lot of the Lings for free, but the surround is going to happen on at least some of these Hellions, and there is nowhere to run with those rocks.
Yeah, nice surrounds. Maybe not the worst trade there for the Riddler, who is now going to mech. Hellion losses are less and less important, but this is such an interesting style. I love seeing anyone experiment mech to bio or vice versa. Fantasy was doing it. It was legit build style to play in Brood War. So there was, I think, a bit of a nostalgic desire to try and make it work. But you only see it in pro games once every blue moon. I think it did happen recently in GSL. I think TY did it. But this all goes back to, a lot of these things are viable because they're in the hands of the best Terrans in the world. Not to say the Riddler's screwed because he's literally not TY, but it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, this is actually a really nice position, though, for Krillman. He's going to trap a lot of these Hellions. There's Cyclones in production behind this, which are not going to deal quite as well with these Lings. And if Krillman can find his way into the base, well, Riddler might be in a bit of trouble.
I feel like I understand what the idea of this is, and I think it's really cool. You do the 2-1-1, you keep up the pressure, maybe even so well that they forget to follow up scout, and then suddenly you also have even Hellion Cyclone, but maybe just Hellions. That could be a big momentum shift. That could be a lot of freedom on your side of the map because you actually have these units that are legitimately threatening, like 2 medevac drops plus 16 Marines. But because he lost the drop, because those Lings got in, because the 3rd CC is now even further delayed, I think that it's all kind of fallen on its face.
Yeah, and you know what? Krillman knows exactly who and what he's dealing with. His transition off the back of this going to be into those Hydralisks. He's going to be sitting on just about 70 workers, and he can just afford to pump this Ling Hydra. And he's going to want to take a fight before any kind of big splash damage is out. When he's just dealing with Banshee, Hellion, Cyclone, he's going to absolutely wreck it with his army.
Yeah, they're not head-to-head unit harassment units. And it's good that you brought that up. I mean, I'm looking at tank production, but he went for double reactors factory, so his original plan might have been a 2-1-1 into follow-up Hellbat Cyclone push with 1-1 upgrades if everything had aligned as perfectly as possible. And I can imagine that being kind of a big deal, but now it just looks like someone who really is not going into the mid-game very well. Someone who doesn't have a tank count, who doesn't have a big enough army to make up for that lack of tank count. And Krillman, I feel like he knows he's in a good position. If he just pulls the trigger, he might be able to end the game.
Yeah, and I think that's what he's looking to do. He's knocking down these rocks. The Riddler is trying to get a wall up, but no wall on this ramp. And Krillman looking to push up here. He is going to try to catch this army. 1 tank is now up. That's going to offer some siege damage from behind. Every SCV coming off the line. But Krillman's army just looks absolutely overwhelming here as it powers through that tank.
GG. I would say a very nice game from Chroma. The Riddler had a cool idea, but I think you really have to give props to a Zerg player that responds to weird stuff. That's kind of like the biggest weakness for Zerg players is they know exactly what to do against a 2-1-1, exactly what to do against a Hellbat push, but you give them a 2-1-1 into a Hellbat, and they're just a lot of people might just be like, "What is even happening?" But now he had the right moves, he had the right counters, he gained control of the game so early on. It was a really nice play from him.
Yeah, and that's going to put them in a really good position. I mean, Fear Dragon and I were talking about it's kind of the underdog story, right? Like the Waterloo is kind of the bad guys in this story. They're the really good team that everyone expects to win, and they're kind of out there trash talking. And Illinois, if they wanted this series, Krillman has to win both the matches he's in. And he's already done half of that. It's going to be up to the rest of the team to try to carry him through.
Yeah. But as you mentioned, the entirety of Waterloo is GM, so every single one of these guys is going to be hard to beat down.
Yeah, so our next series is going to be Osiris G. He's going to be playing up against Yenfu, who is a Protoss player. We've seen him use some interesting proxy carrier type builds in the past. I'm not sure if that's what he's going to be going for when everything's on the line in the semifinals and his team's already down a map. But maybe that's kind of his comfort zone. We'll have to see.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if the plan is to go to a break or. All right. So I guess the plan is from now on to go for a small break in between games. So guys, we'll see you in just a minute.
Hello and welcome back to the CSL. Illinois just took the first map off of their favorite opponent's Waterloo, and we're getting ready to hop into the next map with Osiris G versus Yenfu.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think most people recognize the Riddler first and foremost, even though all these guys are GM. The Riddler has been playing in a lot of these tournaments, kind of naming himself as the ace, and to lose him is a pretty big deal. Things already looking better for Illinois, but we'll see what they can do against the rest of the team.
Well, spawning here in the top left-hand corner of Neon Violet Square, playing for Illinois, or playing rather for Waterloo, it is Yenfu.
And in the bottom right, playing for Illinois, it is D Keyboard or Oriya or Colby G. I feel like I've seen all three names. Was it Arias?
I think it's Arias.
Yeah, there we go, Arias.
So this is going to be another really important match. I think Arias, D Keyboard, is probably the second strongest player on Illinois. He's been responsible for helping to carry them this far, and he's going to have to try to make a miracle happen. Waterloo was saying Yenfu was their ace player. I never know with them how serious they're being, but I mean, he's definitely a very strong player. And if D Keyboard can take this, suddenly all they have to win is the 2v2, and that's the matchup where absolutely anything can happen, no matter kind of the level of play between the players.
Yeah, it's I mean, some teams really do specialize in 2v2. We saw some, pretty astounding win records for players that aren't even, they're big GMs on the other team, but they would be two masters, yet they would always win the 2v2s. Like, it does certainly happen. So that is a potential 3-0 possibility, but I don't want to say that's going to happen. Citus and Locker. All right as well, but that'll be for the next game. So we're guaranteed going to 3 games. Those of you tuning in don't know much about the CSL. It is 1v1, 1v1, 2v2, 1v1, and then ace, 1v1 again, but it's like overall best of 5. You watch Pro League, some similarities to that. So there is a lot of emphasis on, strategy, coaches. I don't know if, I'm guessing they're player coaches, right? Someone just is kind of picked as a captain. Sometimes throwing out your player on a specific map or against this person or in a 2v2 can be extremely important. Like, we can see even with this series that Krillmon, having already played and playing in the 3rd game, is no longer eligible for the ace. So, if they do get tied up, then that could be trouble for Illinois, but we'll see what happens.
I think their most viable path to victory is the 3-0, and that's always kind of crazy, right? To say like, oh, this team, they're probably going to win 3-0, or the other team's probably going to take it, just because it's kind of two extremes here. But it's going to be just a really tough mountain to climb if they have to finish off a series without their best player. But even if they want to have a chance to get there, D Keyboard has to win this series to start things off. Yenfu's a player that we've talked about has been aggressive, a bit cheeky. What he's doing here doesn't look too abnormal. So maybe in his PvZ he prefers to play it standard, or maybe he's taking things a bit more seriously because we are in those playoffs and they are behind 0-1.
Yeah. I think there is some time to guess that he might do something weird because, yeah, you don't have to go 2-base carrier to go for fast carriers. So you can still go for 3-base, especially on Neon Violet Square, which there's a bit of a mistake in the lobby, but I felt like it's worth mentioning because it was obvious that Yenfu really wants to play on this map. Like, as a Protoss player, that's understandable just in general, but also with maybe some tricky builds, hidden things in the back of the base, or just a fast 3rd base into some really odd fast carrier play. He really made me use, like, I was definitely playing on this map, man. And that's going to put D Keyboard in a bit of an unfortunate situation, I think, because you're already facing someone that might just be better than you. I don't know their respective MMRs specifically, but might already be like, okay, I'm 500 MMR below this guy. Then you face on a map that's pretty good for him too. Like, that never feels very good.
Yeah, it looks like D Keyboard just starting to get all those drones out. He is taking the threat of any kind of Oracle play pretty seriously. Got spores in all 3 bases, increasing his queen count quite a bit, so he is equipped. He shouldn't really be taking any damage from that Oracle. This Void Ray out there is going to hunt down some of the Overlords, but it does have speed, so it sees the second Stargate there.
Yeah, interesting choice. from our Zerg player to get that speed, but I guess he is aware that there could be something funky. Yeah, just first Stargate, but there is that fleet beacon. That's something that okay, now would be a great time to scout that Overlord.
Yeah, that's almost like an anti-scout, right? You go in and everything just looks kind of normal, and as soon as your Overlord gets shut down by the void, although seeing the Void Ray might tip you off that like something is a little bit amiss here. Why are you building a defensive Void Ray at 5 minutes into the game?
Yeah, totally right. I think back when Mass Oracles was popular, you actually had more often than not a Void Ray opener, and that was sometimes like a tell. And then I think some people who do play into those carriers want to go for Void Rays either first or eventually. And, well, you're right. It can be a bit of a tell instead of just a second Oracle or Phoenix. It's definitely a question mark, and he just scouted with the Overlord.
Yeah, I was going to say he does see that. Carrier is going to be produced 2 at a time here. And I assume the keyboard is smart enough to realize he's not going up against ranged Phoenixes or anything like that. It is going to be the Golden Armada. And I think that actually triggers him to move out with this attack. He knows that his opponent's investing so much in that Stargate tech that he might have some trouble dealing with the pressure at the front.
Unfortunately, just pure link pressure is exactly what Yanfu is capable of dealing with. All he has to do is wall off a second time, because he might run out of production on gateway units, but walling off's fine too. Build a shield battery, build a cannon, I guess, too, once his forge is done. But if he doesn't do any of those, then of course that could be a problem, and Harry's finally adding on maybe a secondary wall. He might end up losing an X-Core, which will let some of the links through. But I was going to say it might be worth sacrificing the links to delay the upgrade. And he would delay any Adept Warpins for a future bust, but he's just not in a real position to bust a Protoss player. If he was going for a 3-base Hydra all-in with no upgrades, I feel like that could literally just win the game. But instead he went for the macro game, 4th base, 5th base, gold base, Spire, and Infestation Pit. And I mean, both are viable, but this might be a little... It's tougher.
Yeah, he is getting that Spire up, so I wonder if we're just going to see kind of a Mass Corruptor style out of him. He can certainly afford mass whatever he wants to get, and I think the critical move from the keyboard here is just going to be having overwhelming army numbers and not letting Yanfu get that critical unit count up, because once he has a certain amount of carriers backed up by a certain amount of Void Rays with those upgrades, fights are going to be very disfavorable for him.
Yeah. It's a good point. I think what some sort of players do this. It's not wrong in trying to go for the Spire play immediately, but a lot of Protoss players, some of them forget that's an option, and they don't make those Void Rays, and they do just die to overwhelming Corruptor counts. Yanfu is not. Yanfu is trying to get some scouting done with the Oracle consistently, is getting back into the Void Rays, which are the counter to the Corruptors. And honestly, it's always a bit of a gamble, too, because you can't make that many Corruptors. They're pretty expensive units. Well,
he's gonna move out with this first Corruptor cloud, and the Void Ray count already pretty high with another 3 being made at a time. That's gonna bust right through that. And at this point, it's almost like dead weight. I'm sure he can bounce around and try to take out buildings with the corruption, but it's gonna be a hard fight here, unless he can try to shave off some of the Void Rays at the edge and abuse the immobility of them.
Yeah, he gets out of there with his Corruptors, some of them low but alive, and I think that was absolutely the right call to get out of there. He doesn't have any upgrades on these Corruptors, which is quite unfortunate. And he does want Yanfu to pop the overcharge and then cancel it or just run out of time before he really takes a fight. But at this point now, as a Zerg player, you're kind of on that timer where if you don't bust them down with overwhelming numbers soon, then they'll have too strong of an army, even if they're still 30, 40 armies fly down on a very, turtled up position. 4 bases on the Violet Square is still something that is easily defendable.
Do you think D Keyboard might be going for like surprise neural with these infestors? I mean, just knowing his opponent's army is going to be kind of small, expensive units. I don't think that's what he's doing, but I mean, his army fights so poorly against it. I don't know if fungal growth alone is going to be enough to turn the tide.
Would be pretty sick to see, and it's not a terrible thing to call or suggest either, as Neural Parasite can be very effective. Want to cancel that? Yeah, I was going to say, I think you knew the overture was going to happen as soon as the recall was going to be finished, so definitely overstaying is welcome there. Going back to the Neural Parasites, I think D Keyboard, first of all, it's got to get his gases up, if that was his plan, build a billion investors. And like fungal can be effective against the mass void rays if they're clumped up. But no, parasite just would have been a cooler, cool points, but also legitimate. A good idea. You get 10 infestors. That's a little bit easier for the Zerg to make than it is for the Protoss to make 10 more void rays. So.
It looks like a D keyboard gonna be taking advantage of one of these angles to try to drop some corruption on here, not actually firing with all his corruptors at once. He's gonna be splitting up. He might actually take out 2 bases of his opponent here, or at least force out that recall and then get out of there.
Maybe this is kind of his plan with the corruptors. Instead of just brute forcing against the army, he is trying to snipe bases. But you have to be careful with this because every time you lose an army, it's like a depth trading. You rush into the drone line, you get a bunch of drone kills, when all your depths die, the counter kills you anyways. He kills 4 Nexus, but then he loses his corruptors counter with 5 carriers and 10 void rays happens. Is he going to be able to defend that? So he does have to be wary, and well, he seems to be. 2 bases down and saves enough certainly to feel comfortable.
Yeah, he's getting his army into position. He's trying to get ready here. He has a Ling heavy army, so if he can find a way to win in the sky, he can shred his opponent. He's actually going to be using these to try to buy some time here. The carriers are not going to go home. They're going to commit recall, totally available, so Yanfu feels very comfortable moving out, taking this aggressive stance. And D Keyboard, his army is not well equipped to fight this. Does look like the Void Ray is going to try to bust through these corruptors here, and my game is actually freezing in one opportune time. But D Keyboard gonna call GG. And that's gonna tie this series up.
Well, definitely not the ending I was looking forward to. But I guess that happens. He figured his army was just too terrible. Couldn't remake it.
Yeah, and he had a lot of infestors, but I didn't see any fungal growths go down. It almost felt like the fight, it probably still would have gone in the way of Yanfu, but it felt like it was a lot more of a stomp than it needed to be. D Keyboard does not take the map. That's going to tie the series up, and that means we're going to our ace, and we may be guaranteed, or not maybe, rather, I'm sorry, we're not going to our ace. We're guaranteed to see 4 maps. My brain is fried today.
I was like, are we though? I mean, an ace player is playing in the 2v2. Maybe that's what your brain was going for. Right, we're going to go into 2v2. That's going to be, I don't know, CJXYF. That can't possibly be the name in game, right?
No, I forget what it is, yeah, but okay. It's easier to say.
Detail King, apparently, is what happens when I hover over it. But he's with Koromon and then Citus and Locke for Waterloo is going to be coming up for this 2v2. So we'll see you guys in a bit.
Hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are getting ready to go into our 2v2 match where things are all tied up between Waterloo and their opponent, Illinois.
hmm Things I feel like already aren't looking too great for Illinois, just because with the Chromon second time Chromon appears in the 2v2, it feels like they're really hoping that maybe Arias could have just like hard countered Yenfu somehow, and that they could grab the 3-0. Now as it is, even if Chromon manages to take this and put it 2-1, with Cyrus coming out next for Waterloo being GM, I'm not sure if Aldosia can take him on and the notable ace, they no longer have their ace. Chromon is their ace, so they've already used him up here.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty likely that Illinois takes this. It's by no means definite. But for Waterloo, they don't need to. It's not necessarily like a hard part of their path to victory. I do think that if Illinois drops this map, things go from kind of dicey to like disastrous. They're really banking to win this map. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put Krillman in the 2v2.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how their strategy pans out. Obviously, if he does manage to help them take this 2v2, it's still all hopes high and all that could happen for the rest of the series. But if he doesn't, then I think it actually is just like, I don't think it's going to happen. So, in a way, the most important match of this series is just the players in Shrines of Lazul. In the bottom position, it is Chromon and Rodoro Chica. I like that name better than whatever they used.
And in the top right-hand corner, it is Buster and Locke playing for Waterloo.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a TTTZ. A lot of Terran here. Giants of Liverpool is just kind of like it's kind of a trolling map. You really have to be prepared to have your defense set up, which Protoss can definitely have a hard time doing in the very early game. You're not really connected with your partner, so you can't depend on a very sturdy Terran wall that can be repaired, for instance, to get you through against aggressive maneuvers. So I think Zerg with like a good opener, and we see Chromon going for that pool, I think gas first maybe, but pool for hatchery. And then the Terrans, the Terrans got to figure out if they want a 2-racks, if they think they're going to be 2-racks, so they have the 2-racks in return. I mean, it's great. It's a great mirror matchup when you have 3 Terrans.
Yeah, and we've seen Waterloo in the past actually do 6-racks Reaper, because they do tend to go with this Buster Locke combo, and that's just been super powerful here. And we do see Krillman saying those are Reaper Raxes in the all chat here. I think he might know a bit about their preferred playstyle, and that is going to be that 6-racks Reaper as all 6 barracks get fired up by Waterloo.
I mean, you can't even be like start hating on their style of play. I mean, if Buster wants to 3-racks every single game on ladder, I guess 2-racks really, but you go to mean on ladder, then okay, yeah, you put him as a cheesy guy, and you're like, I hate you and I hate your playstyle. But on this map in a 2v2, I think this is honestly like one of the better ways to play, because 3-racks does in this situation go into a decent enough macro game. Because I feel like there should be damage done. Now, if they literally do no damage, then that's a different issue, but I feel like some damage should be done.
Yeah, and Rodoro Chica does have a bunker that's going to help push the Reapers away from the mineral line. There's, of course, weak spots on kind of the southern side of his base here, and actually, these SCVs a bit vulnerable, going to get the damage started quite early here as Rodoro Chica is under fire.
I love the idea of the bunker, but unfortunately, it's not super reliable. You could still lose tons of SCVs, you could still get your production camped, but the idea is that you have a safe place to go back into, and hopefully that number grows. What he really needs is a Cyclone, but because it's 2 Terrans 3-racksing him, even a Cyclone won't stand up to 6 Reapers, which is, they're almost already at. Lucky grab from that Helen to take down the 3, but a 4th one's already here, and really our red Terran just needs help from the Zerg player, but speed's not done, so he might as well not even bother.
Yeah, you don't want to be bleeding off these very vulnerable slow lanes until that speed kicks in here. And it looks like Krillman actually going to take some damage of his own as the Reapers get into the main base of him. And he does have 2 Queens and a Spine Crawler to help anchor this defense. He's looking to be in a bit better shape than his teammate as he manages to snag 1 Reaper and potentially 2.
I think going for the Zerg player first might have been the better idea. Zerglings are a much better counter to Reapers than they were for anyone who watched maybe a year ago when Yen was playing. They really fell out versus Zerg, but the point is, either way, whether they go for the Terran or for the Zerg, if they combine forces and their micro is decent, they could take on both armies. We actually have a second Hellion coming out here from Redorchica instead of a Cyclone, which it's such a dangerous thing to do. Like, yes, there is a more micro ability, but the Cyclone is just hands down sturdier, easier to use as well. So things are still very complicated.
Yeah, I mean, if Krillman can get a great snag of a bunch of these Reapers, the Height Cyclone does add a lot of splash potential from the back. That can help out. But this Reaper count is so high at this point. Everything is just being absolutely one-shotted. It almost feels like the buildings are being one-shotted at this point.
Right? That building was. He didn't cancel that. And they're actually expanding, by the way. That's what I was talking about. You can do this and get some serious damage done, but oh, maybe spoke too soon. This round is going to be pretty painful. Losing all of your Reapers, no matter what situation you're in, is usually a very scary thing to do. Counterattack from Lings could be too much to handle, but they're Terrans when they have walls.
Yeah, and you know what? Buster actually dropped the Manor Mule right before that happened. And I feel like sometimes when you drop the Manor Mule, it's like, it's the moment that makes Goku go Super Saiyan. If you ever watched Dragon Ball Z back in the day, you get so angry that you're like, not gonna let this happen, not gonna go down without a fight, and all those Reapers are gone.
Yeah, that's some scary stuff. If any of the Reapers survive, you can chain grenades on approaching roaches if you're scared of that. Because Lings are going to be breaking Terran players, but roaches could. That's exactly what Krillmon is getting into. But what we have here is Buster and Locke both going for a tank follow-up to kind of secure the most natural follow-up of their opponents,
which is going to be a bust here. And it looks like that Liberator is going to pull out, get a bit of lag spike here. But maybe looking to find an angle where it can take out a tank or something like that.
that's exactly what I was worried about. But yeah, needs that high ground. Does have it with the Lings. Liberator even comes up too. Nice reposition on the tank before it died, though.
Yeah, and that tank is going to be pulled back. It is going to be able to help deal with the aggression coming out of Krillman here. And Redora Chico's Liberator going to get cleaned up. And they are being sent home right now by the defense of Waterloo.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is already a pretty cool 2v2 just because it did go into the macro game. Now, Redora is not in a great spot. He's either going to be recovering here, and Krillmon's got to cover for him for a while. But Krillmon, I think, can. He took the gold base, which is definitely advised on this map as a Zerg player, and now he's going to his third. Redora finally throwing on his own command center, but obviously a lot later than the other Terrans. This is a game where Buster and Locke, I think, are still finding themselves ahead. But Krillmon, being a pretty powerhouse GM Zerg, he could, now given some moments to breathe here, really power up. I think he could carry the team.
Yeah, and Buster is actually going to go for a run by here. Does take some tank fire, and that's actually losing a lot of those Reapers. They're not the most critical units at this time, but you still don't want to be throwing them away, especially when you're perhaps a bit vulnerable to some kind of counterattack, when you want to be putting pressure to stop someone like Krillman from just steaming ahead into a full-fledged macro beast mode. And these Reapers are eventually going to get chased down.
Yep, no more harassment, I guess, which is nice because they were targeting the Terran. It needs as much time as possible to recover. Buster and Locke both have stim on the way or done. Yeah, or done. Upgrades, both going into bio here. Sometimes for TT pairs, I do like to see Terran. One go for bio, one go for mech, but I don't quite know what's up with the Ghost Academy. Yeah, I don't have any guesses.
I'm gonna guess it's for ghosts.
Well, there's that, but why? I mean, it's not like you're going to snipe any of the. If there's a Protoss, I'm like, okay, fine, even though it's a bit of an early Ghost Academy. But I feel against Zerg and Terran, it's kind of the worst thing to go for in a hurry.
I think it's probably for nukes, just because this is Waterloo and they like nukes. Like, that's not any kind of deep strategic analysis, but we've seen them like nukes. They're kind of trolly and flashy as you can be for a team that's famous for playing a slow lockstep mech style.
You're probably right. I guess that's why I added the like little asterisk when I said like this fast. If this was a bigger map or they were already on four bases and they were seriously like slugging it out, then I'm like, yeah, nukes would be awesome. Maybe you get one surprise because everything is so hectic. But you're still only on 2 bases, and things really aren't that hectic. Chromon's mostly being defensive, and Redor is still trying to just recover. So I really wonder if getting one ghost, supporting one ghost, is really worth it. Oh well.
It does look like Redor Chica gonna get those tanks. Not actually quite being cleaned up. Manages to keep one alive as Krillman's reinforcements come in to save the day for him. But this pressure still feels a little bit dicey. And yeah, I do agree with the decision to just back off and not try to keep that foothold.
Some decent attempts to keep applying pressure, though. Certainly, Buster and Locke are in the right to try and continue their momentum, but gotta be a little careful not to lose too much. Gonna grab a queen, but maybe ultimately lose the drop. Yeah, okay, they gotta be careful.
Yeah, that drop does eventually get cleaned up. It looks like Locke gonna send out another drop to try to hit the Terran player, Redor Chica, who's just been really struggling this game, and the pressure is not gonna stop the Liberator. Gets on top of this mineral line here. Some of the Marines do find a place where they can clean it up, but actually going to move into that damage zone to try to take care of it quicker. Redor Chica, desperate to try to restart that economy and not let it continue to get harassed.
Right. I guess yeah, you could maybe judge him for doing the push because now he's basically on like no units after his push was cleaned up. But that is, I think, his strongest addition to this team at this point is a tank line. He just absolutely needs Krumlin to be with him. So, yeah, he needs to, work on his economy and work on getting back into the game. If he did just focus on, I say, majority tanks and liberators, those siege units, he could round out Krumlin's lack of siege units. Zerg not really well known for that part of StarCraft 2, really, really well. But that's why, we have the Terrans going around them, basically. When there was a siege push, they cleaned it up, and if that didn't work, they had those drops going around the maps. And that's always going to be hard for our TZ team to take care of. There's some dead space on this map, and just no one's really floating enough minerals to set up turret rings or spore crawler rings.
Yeah, it does look like Krillman maybe going to take an engagement in the middle of the map here. One really scary thing for him is as he starts to look towards getting his 4th base, as his initial bases are drying up, especially that gold, is it's going to be hard to hold a base on this map against Terran players that are dropping everywhere. His creep spread is really good, which is going to help out with that. But Redor Chica's army is fairly immobile. I mean, he does have kind of marine buffer, but that's really there to protect the tanks. And he's going to need to deal with these drops before they get to him. If they manage to get off, it's going to be really tough to eventually clean them up. And so far, he's doing a good job of that. The creep spread helping out a lot.
Yeah, the creep spread is a nice identifier. Push is on the way. It buys you an extra 10 seconds. Here we have Redor Chica kind of just showing that he can still be a very important part team, but he needs to be together with Chromon. That's the only way, is if they get some really great tank shots and a choke and they're both together, because right now their respective army supplies really being outnumbered by the blue team, I guess, because they're blue and teal.
Yeah, Buster is just continuing to power up. He's been allowed to basically do whatever he wants unmolested here, and actually gonna get some tank shots off on Redor Chica's army, who's maybe feeling a little bit pinned right now. Needs to be very careful on how he plays out this interaction.
I kind of wanted to touch on it, but there's actually quite a bit happening, so I didn't. But I wanted to question, does Krumlin go for Roach Hydra or does he go for Mutas? And obviously at this point, he's going for Roach Hydra, but I wonder what the game would look like if he went for Mutas. Because Mutas, they don't hold against pushes very well, but if you can get to a certain count, you can run around and just harass and control the game well enough. When you go Roach Hydra, you really are kind of sizing up numbers, making it more of a just, okay, my army versus yours. And, I mean, obviously at this point, Buster and Locke's army is just straight up bigger than Chromon's, so unless he gets like a huge concave or there's absolutely no micro from Buster, his army is just outnumbered.
Yeah, there is the Banelings here, so there's the possibility of maybe isolating some of this bio and then being able to take out an effective fight against the tanks without, like, quite as much bio buffer here. But he's still going to need to find a really good angle. He'll need to have all those Banelings crash effectively. And I feel they're a more useful tool as like a defensive weapon on creep because they're so valuable and the army supply is just so much smaller for our Illinois team.
We do have Gromon going for Broodlords, it looks like, but Buster and Locke are both getting to Ghosts. Oh, the Blinding Clouds end up being pretty good. They run into the Banelings, but Number is still prevailing here. He's run back through it, don't care, it disappears, and even the Mana Meal comes out.
Yeah, that is the second Mana Meal here, but that one looks like it may be a bit more final as Buster powers on through, going to take out all of these units, and Krillman's army is just about gone here other than what's in production. GG is called. And we're going to be moving on to our next map with Waterloo in a 2-1 lead.
Yeah, not looking like it's going to be possible for Illinois now. They really needed that, and then a little bit of luck beyond that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm sizing up the lineup, right? Maybe Waldoja is able to beat Sidis. That's not a player I know too much about. And then you'd probably have D Keyboard come out, and then either going to be a rematch against Yenfu or the Riddler, right? Those are kind of the two possibilities, and neither of them are particularly favorable to D Keyboard.
Exactly. So it's going to be really tough. The next game could be the last one's going to be Waldoja versus Sidis or Sidis, however you pronounces it. So see you guys in a minute.
Hello and welcome back to what could be our final map of the last semifinal here in the CSL to determine if Illinois or Waterloo will advance onto our grand finals.
Right, we're gonna have Sidus as well, Doja or Buster. We saw him in the 2v2 just a second ago. I recognize this name from I feel like quite a while, quite a lot of CSLs, but that's why I'm leaning towards Buster. We'll see what Doja can throw out.
Yeah, spawning here in the bottom right-hand corner, playing for Illinois. It is their last best hope, Waldosha.
Yeah, it needs to get this win or it's just all over. The top left, as the Red Terran, he is Buster. Certainly contributed to the last 2v2 victory for his team. Could contribute to the just overall win for his team if he wins right here, right now. And that'll put them in the finals. Which hopefully will be quite a good one.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to start things off with nothing crazy. Buster not going to go for any kind of proxy or anything like that. Pool first out of Bulldozer, but it's nothing crazy early. Could be a bit of aggression, probably not going to be anything crazy all in or anything like that. And both these players just kind of wary. I mean, Bulldozer knows it's their last chance, right? They have to win. If you even want to get to the ace match, you're not secured in victory if you win here, but it's at least a chance.
Yeah, that's a scary point to make. I think Doja might be feeling a little bit of pressure, being the guy that needs to bridge the gap, but ultimately it isn't the ace match. It isn't like, okay, we seriously have a shot here. It's kind of like, you know, we tried our best. We had this plan. It didn't quite work out. Maybe we lose from here on out, but I could continue the dream. And maybe that's going to put him in an okay mentality. Because I think when you're in the legitimate ace match, that's where stress is a real big deal, like a real contributor to what happens in the game.
Yeah, and it looks like we are going to see a scout here out of Buster. The first move is going to be the Reaper coming out. Reaper expand, just standard stuff against a Zerg player, especially on Catalyst. It's a map that kind of lends itself to this kind of play here. And Doja also just going to be trying to scout with a couple of these lings here, running them around the map actually to avoid the SCV.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing really remarkable at Catalyst, but it's like, I don't know, there's this book, the series that I love called The Bulgariad, and there's this guy that's literally the most plainest guy in the world, but he's nice. He's sturdy, he's a blacksmith, like you can just depend on him, and he gets the hottest girl in the world basically at the end of the day, like the most powerful, hottest girl in the world, because he's the most reliable, sturdiest person ever. That's Catalyst for me. It's like nothing flashy about it, but it gives some really good games. And you can always depend on it being in the map pool. Well, with vetoes taking consideration, because unfortunately it is out of the map pool literally in next season's ladder, which I'm quite sad about. I'm gonna miss this old fella.
Yeah, but it's gonna get its swan song here in the CSL. I mean, $10,000 on the line. And this Reaper going to be moving out as well. Does it actually have any lings available to push this away?
No. But I guess he technically doesn't need to. I mean, it's playing with fire a little bit, but the fire is losing, like, max. He'll make lings to, I think, contribute to the 4 Hellion defense, which is what Terrans usually wait for to really pile on the pressure. Some just straight up throw the 2 Hellions forward, desperately hoping the lings are a bit late. I'm not sure Buster's the type to do that.
Yeah, it does get one drone here, does Buster. Gonna pull back out, and it's not a huge deal, but it definitely feels really good to get that drone. You're not supposed to get it. There's no reason for it to be lost. And behind this, it is going to be the Hellion pressure you were talking about. And Waldoza, it should know it's coming. I mean, it's a really standard timing here, but you gotta be prepared. If you're not ready, you can just lose everything to that little pressure.
For sure. And speaking of pressure, Buster going for that bunker, that was quite the defensive, really unnecessary bunker. Of course, we know that, but he might have been thinking that Doja could just try and ling flood him. One of the earliest, silliest ways a Terran player can die is their Hellions get surrounded, and then they lose too many SCVs, and it's like, it's the worst feeling in the world. The bunker basically says that, but it does delay a little bit here and there. The build's pretty tight up until that point. Just maybe a bit of insight into what Buster was thinking. If I can just get to the mid game, then I'm good to go. Which, killing drones. Ho ho ho! And already mana muling. All right.
Waldoza playing super greedy, actually going to lose maybe a dozen drones here, just for the price of one Hellion out of Buster. That
The mule, I guess.
and the mule. Yeah, Buster has dropped, I think, 3 Manor Mules so far in this series, which is weird because he's played 2 games.
Well, he's probably going to throw down 4, right?
Yeah, presumably.
Yeah.
The Manor Mule to map ratio is pretty high. Although if Waldoza recovers from that and wins, will Buster throw down like a GG Mule?
It's the best feeling in the world. I mean, I think banner mules are comical no matter when you throw them down. Maybe it's a little bit more agitating when they're really preemptive, but I just think they're so silly that I've never really considered them BM. It is a very good feeling when you take down someone you know is being kind of an arrogant guy.
Yeah, definitely. It can push you to dig the deepest. Although $10,000 on the line, there's already a lot of reasons to dig deep here beyond.
Now
just
it's personal.
This Banshee.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this Banshee's looking for damage, but I mean one thing, despite their super greedy opening, Waldoza did get a pretty high queen count up. They do have spores, and it's not really gonna find much more damage here, I don't think.
Unfortunately, Waldoza, I think he was already. I mean, he's in a bad spot for the drone losses, but then finding himself supply blocked. Unfortunately, things have really seemed to be thrown out of. What am I going for here? Not out of the loop. Out of line? Sure, say out of line. He's really been thrown out of line. Like, he's messing up on a lot of different macro aspects, and he basically needs to play a perfect game after losing so many drones. And being at 44 workers 52 of Buster on a 3rd CC, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, these Hellions, they're not probably going to find too much more purchase, especially with the roaches behind here backing things up, but it's just a constant threat, right? It changes the way you play. You feel a little pinned in. Maybe especially after that initial beating that Waldoza took, they're a bit hesitant to drone up their 3rd, and Buster is just looking absolutely in command of this series. As behind all this, he's powering up his 1-1 upgrades, getting combat shield out. He's adding tanks into the mix because he's seen those roaches and isn't quite sure what Waldoza is doing. And Waldoza has decided they are not going to recover in a macro game. They are going all in.
It's not a great all-in, though. He's once again supply blocked. He's building a defensive spine crawler. This is not going to be a very clean all-in, and just honestly, it's not going to be very good. He already took too much damage. He's already messed up too much, and while an all-in should have overpowering numbers, but it's a very difficult pull, this is not that scenario. Buster just stim once and be like, oh, that was it? Probably be fine.
Yeah, and actually behind this, Buster managed to clean up 10 workers, so this went from an all-in to an all-in. Any chips left in the pocket are going onto the table here. There's a few Ravagers, so maybe the hope is to get some kind of Miracle Corrosive Vial. With Transfuses, this army might, live a little bit longer than it really has any rights to. The Banshees can get shut down here. Transfuses are good, but the DPS from Buster is so high here with those Marines. And I think, well, those are running out of steam before they've even broken in the front wall.
Yeah. I guess pulling back was a smarter plan, because it would be a terrible game if you have the perfect defensive position, but you get cocky with your Marines. They die, then the tank gets pounced upon. So he is trying to play it smart. He's not underestimating the all-in, but this really was like an anti-timing. Like I said, the macro was messed up for it. There go the Manor Mules.
So that brings us to a grand total of 7 Manor Mules in 2 games. Buster setting new records as he propels Waterloo into the finals.
All right, so let's get in the finals. They were not able to take the test lead. They lost in the finals, so this would be an opportunity to finally grab a championship.
Yeah, and for Temple as well. They've been to the finals of the last 2 CSLs, but haven't managed to cinch it yet. So for both of these guys, I think there's a lot on the line here. And a player like Suppy, I think, is not going to be super happy if he loses to Waterloo.
No, he's not, but it's part of the Collegiate Star League. It's not just the Suppy Star League or, the Jon Snow Star League. He needs to be helped out by his teammates, and it feels like Waterloo might be a bit stronger. Overall, Suppy is a pretty solid back pocket to win almost guaranteed 2 games.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting situation because I think Suppy and Tesla are both probably stronger than any one individual on Waterloo. But the depth that Waterloo has, their 2v2 team is probably going to be a bit stronger. Center was a good player. We saw him beat Lamb Sauce, who is one of like the aces in the CSL, but he's really volatile and cheesy, and I'm not sure how well that's going to work against like someone like the Riddler. Maybe that's a hyper defensive mech player. So I think you're right. I think Waterloo's the more solid team overall, but it's going to be a really good series. And I think for anyone that's been following the CSL, this is the series people have been most excited for. I don't think we saw it played in like the group stages yet. This is going to be the first time they meet each other, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that. That might be the case. So there's a lot of stories going on here. The depth of the lineup versus some of the star players. You have different styles, different cheeses. You do have a bit more of the, I'm going to keep using the word arrogant because it's not just confident when you start manner muling at 4 minutes of the game. It's arrogant, you can't, I don't think you can say anything different.
4 manner mules at the end of the game there.
And like you can compare that to Suppy, who's just been like the StarCraft 2 sweetheart ever since he appeared. Well, not in Brood War, the StarCraft 2 sweetheart. In Brood War, he was kind of I don't know how to put it. He was kind of an annoying kid. Did you see the Liquid post from like 12, 15 years? Like, oh my god, it was so long ago.
I've seen the video of him casting Brood War like before his voice changed at all. It was still like
he wasn't
little kid's voice.
He wasn't just casting Brood War. He had beaten, I forget who it was, like In Control or someone, and he was just like talking like, I don't know why this guy is so respected. Like he's not that good. Like I beat him like often, and like just like maybe he was a bit of a brat when he was younger, but now he's a really cool guy. And just as I said, the storylines, the dynamics between these two teams is gonna be really fun.
Yeah, and I'm of course pretty local to Temple. They're like 15 minutes away. So definitely wishing them luck as they go into this series. And of course, good luck and congrats to Waterloo as well, who did get knocked out in the semifinals last time, but now they've made it into the finals, and they're going to be looking to secure their spot in the CSL Hall of Honor.
Yeah. So I do believe that'll be Fear Dragon and I casting the grand finals. We're going to get that set up, hopefully get the players here ready to go a little bit sooner than later. And we'll see you guys for the grand finals, CSL.